Have you ever wondered what what life would be like after a rare disease diagnosis, years or decades later? Today's episode of our connection is especially meaningful as it airs on Easter Sunday, a day many people associate with renewal, resilience, and new beginnings. Um, my guest today, Chuck Hayworth, is a 26-year survivor of a rare stomach cancer, but his story doesn't end there. Uh, it actually is where it began. Um, Today, Chuck is a private and medical meal therapy specialist who works with patients navigating chronic illness, cancer recovery, and complex health conditions. His work focuses on something many with rare disease in the rare disease community struggle with: how to actually implement nutrition in real life after diagnosis. Because let's be honest, many patients are told what they should eat, but not how to make that work in their daily lives. In this episode, we're going to talk about living in living and thriving after a rare disease diagnosis, the role of gut health and inflammation in recovery, how patients and caregivers can align nutritionally, and why food may be one of most overlooked tools in long-term health. This is Rare Connection, where we connect rare disease patients, caregivers, professionals, and share stories, resources, and hope. Chuck, your work today focuses on helping people implement medical nutrition protocols through through real meals. But your journey actually started with your own diagnosis. Can you take us back to when you were first diagnosed and what and with a rare stomach tumor?
Absolutely. Um, where I can really start is that 26 years ago, I was diagnosed with a gastrointestinal stromal tumor that was malignant, that was growing in my stomach, that had spread throughout my digestive tract and down as far as my colon. And it was a scary diagnosis, but it was a half a lifetime ago, and I didn't have all the resources and materials that your viewers have um, that are out there. So we're very blessed to have all the materials and different things that we have when it comes to that. And uh, it was very scary, uh, and it was something that was a career changer because again, I'm in food service. I'm a professional chef, and as a medical meal specialist that I have my specialty in now as a private chef, I've been able to generate recipes that are anti inflammatory and that are customized for conditions for my clients. But back then, I didn't even know what types of food were healthy for someone diagnosed with something like a rare stomach cancer and what types of foods could cause inflammation and cause harm in my body. So it was very much trial and error. And I discussed that in my book that I put out that is called The Chef's Recovery. In 2014, I released that book. And we discussed, and it basically curtails my entire journey from diagnosis all the way to when I started implementing solid food back into my diet. part of what we realized was that there's a real difference between diet before cancer and diet after being diagnosed and after being cleared and becoming cancer free for sure. And that's true with any rare condition. But in my particular case, this was very early, late 90s, early 2000s, and the research just did not exist that exists now. So I had to do a lot of trial and error factors that went into what I've become now, which is a medical meal specialist and a private chef. As it happens, the career change that I made was from industrial food service in hotels and restaurants and very long hours, very inflammatory, pro-inflammatory foods and diet and lifestyle. 14 to 16-hour days were not unheard of, to a lifestyle that was more anti-inflammatory and working in households. And that didn't come overnight, but I was in a cancer therapy group with caregivers and patients, my fellow cancer patients. And one of the caregivers spoke up and said, I need a chef. I need somebody that can help me cook meals because I'm exhausted with everything else I'm having to do for my husband who's a cancer patient. And that day launched my entire new life that I've been living the last 26 years, which is working in households, individualizing and customizing menus for patients. And I started with cancer patients, but I'm now working with patients that are with clients and patients that have been diagnosed with autoimmune disease and kidney and renal issues and all kinds of other diabetic and cardiovascular issues. And it's really kind of snowballed from that moment when my life changed, when I was diagnosed. And in my personal diet, of course, I had to learn about foods that my digestive system could tolerate and foods that I couldn't tolerate. Um, and what ingredients are pro-inflammatory and what ingredients are anti-inflammatory. And I was able to implement this with my fellow cancer patients and then later with the others that I just touched on in my career of almost 30 years now of doing this in households, cooking in households.
Hmm. So, let's see, so what is the biggest challenge you faced during treatment and recovery that ultimately shaped the work you do today?
Well, the biggest challenge that I formulated was really keeping a lot bottled up, not knowing how to speak up. We did have these therapy groups were relatively new in the 90s and early 2000s, but I had the courage to go and attend my first therapy meeting, and that was when I met and realized that there is a commonality amongst, in this case, cancer patients, but there's a commonality in that we got to find the time and we have to know the ingredients that, and each cancer patient is different, as I'm sure your audience is aware,
Mm.
that when you're dealing with something like cancer, it's very much an individualized situation. So the struggle that I had starting out is, hey, here I am at 22 years of age. I was very young. Uh, and and having that diagnosis is a career ender for a chef, you would think, but it actually changed every way since that I've looked at food. I'm looking at food and I'm looking at, is this going to be something that is healthy for me to take into my body? Today's Easter Sunday. I'm looking at what is in season. Where I am now, I'm in North Carolina. I'm in the mountains of North Carolina. Yesterday, I told you pre-show, I shopped the farmers market. I started learning about foods that are locally grown where I live and where my clients live, and started implementing that, diversifying their gut microbiome, strong emphasis on on lean proteins and on whatever is in season and on fibrous vegetables and fruits to begin healing the cells of their body. Ultimately, what we now know is the gut microbiome, our second brain. were able to begin the healing process using, in my case, it was plant based foods at the time. So I was using a lot of locally grown produce, diversifying my diet with vegetables and fruits that only are grown in the region that I'm in and in season in the region that I'm in. But seasonality was very much a part of when I realized there are other people like me. I'm not alone. And other people are desiring the same level of foods and the same types of food, and they really, caregivers especially, needed my assistance back then with meal prep. And so it became that time that I realized I'm not alone and I can actually use my expertise to not only begin to heal the healing process with me as a cancer patient, but also to help my fellow cancer patients begin the healing process within the comfort of their homes so that they didn't have to combat the inflammation associated with figuring out what foods they could have and what foods their bodies could tolerate and couldn't tolerate. And it was very much physician and dietitian guided, which would later become some of the pillars that I would apply to my personal business, which is Real Medical Meals and realmedicalmeals.com. That I applied to my current businesses that I'm running now. The resort chef and thankfully local private chefs as well. We've always stuck with the therapies of anti-inflammatory and seasonal ingredients. Once I realized that I was not alone, and that there was a demand for the level of service and the level of food that I prepare from other patients and other caregivers, I was able to then be able to journey into recovery process myself and know that I wasn't alone. And there's something psychologically in your brain that when you've been diagnosed with something like cancer, especially back then, it was really a sentence of really something serious. And I'm not saying that it isn't today, but we have so many resources now that we didn't have then. So I realized that I've been able to build brands like the Chef's Recovery, like Thankfully Local, and others that I built very early on as a private chef and as a personal chef that was able to assist my fellow cancer patients and their caregivers in knowing that they are not alone in their journey. And that, to me, that was a huge part of answering your question about, you know, knowing that I've been diagnosed. You can have a reaction that is, oh, I've been diagnosed with cancer, or oh, I've been diagnosed with insert, medical condition. Psychologically, you're panicking. But if you know that you've got caregivers and doctors and dietitians and even your fellow patients that are in your corner and that you're not alone, something clicks in your brain that you go, I'm not alone. I have a support group. I have people that care about me, and I'm going to survive. I'm going to beat this. And that's huge. That's a huge part of what I've become and what I've been able to build.
Mm-hmm. So many rare disease patients describe a moment where their diagnosis shifts direction of their life. Um, was there a moment when you realized that food and nutrition would become part of your mission?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a fantastic question. And of course, you know, first I had to work on what foods my body could tolerate, what foods were causing inflammation, and what foods were actually helping to make me feel better. Once I realized that there was a commonality between ingredients that are now known as anti-inflammatory ingredients that help us with inflammation in our bodies, that assist in healing our gut and mucal barrier between our large intestines and our other systems of our body. Once I realized that you could do this with the ingredients and the food that I was cooking with, I was able to share it with other chefs and other patients and other types of diseases. And it's been something that the gut mucal barrier, when I discovered that 10 years into my journey, I discovered that the food that we take into our body can actually harm us, but can also help to heal us. That was about year 10, give or take. Remember, we didn't really have the resources that we have now here in the 2020s back in the early 2000s. A lot of the projects that have been completed and have been researched and developed and everything that's out there now is because of people that came before you in your journey that have lived that have lived through this and are aware of the ingredients that they used and how they can project into your healing process. So in my case, that was like a light bulb that went off. And then once I got my cancer-free diagnosis and I was fully cancer-free and there was no more worrying about tumors or any type of cancer returning to any of the systems in my body, by the time I got that cancer-free diagnosis, I realized that food had a lot to do with my healing. I'm not advocating that food is healing like some of the naturopathic folks do out there. I will say that in conjunction with your dietitians, your doctors, and oncologists, and the food that you take into your body on a daily basis, all of that coupled together is part of the healing process. And once I realized that I could share that with others, I built a foundation, a solid foundation of different companies that help me get the word out to as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really a cool thing, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, you know, you realize you want to help others that are going through the same journey that you've just overcome as a survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to help as many people as you possibly can. And I've been at that now for 26 years. I've been doing this.
So uh, you're now a 26-year survivor, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Uh, Congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you so
Uh,
much.
so how long has how has long-term survivorship taught you? What has long-term survivorship taught you about managing health after a serious diagnosis?
Well, that's a wonderful question too. Wow, you've really got some wonderful questions, some wonderful
Thanks.
interview questions.
Thanks.
Long-term survivalship for me, I've had to really become a stronger person. I'm not saying that when I was in my 20s and I was diagnosed that I was weak, but you have to really learn when you're diagnosed with something like cancer that that is not the end all be all of your life. Back in the early 2000s, when I finally walked back into my career as a chef, and I would talk with people that knew me before, and I had lost a tremendous amount of weight and I looked different, and I my confidence level was higher because I had just gotten through this and I knew that if I beat this I can do anything with my life. I really felt like I was alone. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's like people were looking at me differently, like, how did he beat cancer? I mean, that's a death sentence. How did he beat cancer? This is such a rare cancer that there's no way that anyone could actually, come out at the end of this and actually call themselves a survivor. So I would say the most difficult thing that I ever went through was having to tackle and look at myself in the mirror and look down at that scar on a daily basis and go, you know, I'm never going to return to the unhealthy lifestyle that I was living before. Now that I have the blessing of survivorship for 26 years, it's my responsibility to share with the world how I've been able to do that. How have I been able to overcome the obstacle that is a rare diagnosis of a gastrointestinal stromal tumor, and then turn around and and live a healthy lifestyle, exercise. You know, grounding has helped me tremendously. Stretch and yoga and other types of therapies that are very individualized. Breathing techniques and just taking in the world and breathing and just kind of deep breaths in and slowly letting it out. Things like that that I never did before. I have been doing for the last 26 years, but also implementing strategies for gut health to keep me healthy. Remember, this all centered around a disease of cancer that was diagnosed within my gut, within my digestive tract. And at the time, and even still, I eat for a living. I taste food for a living. So when I start looking at at a diagnosis like this, the realization was to never return to the foods and the lifestyle that caused the inflammation and the irregular cell growth that led to the tumor, that led to the cancer diagnosis. Never return to that. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people get when they become cancer free. They want to just return to their previous diets and their previous lifestyles. And a lot of dietitians and a lot of doctors will tell them, hey, just go back to life as normal. Well, oftentimes life is normal. The exterior factors in our lives, like our diet, restaurants we frequent, um, not exercising, not learning ways to combat the anxiety associated with lifestyle and stress are what brought us to a cancer diagnosis in the first place. All that anxiety, keeping all that boiled up, not really having a release point, a pressure point for that. Oftentimes, that kind of stress is what leads to diagnosis of cancer and other rare diseases within our life. So when we have an outlet, when we return to a lifestyle that is healthier for us and healthier for our lives, we reverse age in a lot of ways. I'm not saying it happens with everyone, but it doesn't hurt that I'm a somebody who's sitting here because I've done this. And that when we start looking at that being the number one thing that I did was not return back to the lifestyle from before. If you're out there and you're listening to this podcast today and you're saying I've just been diagnosed and I've been told I have a little, certain amount of time to really start making some decisions. This is the kind of thing I want you to think about. Always think ahead and always think positively ahead. Once I beat cancer, what am I going to do next? My answer was obvious. I will not return back to the lifestyle that I've just come from, but I will return to a healthier lifestyle. And then once I'm told, hey, no more cancer, you are officially cancer free. And once I ring that bell, I will never return to the lifestyle that brought me here in the first place. Knock on wood, it's been 26 years, never done
Wow.
it. And helped as many people as I possibly could. That was the other part of it is once I get through with this, I'm going to help other people get to the point where they're ringing the bell. And
Wow.
that's been a special part of my life.
Yeah.
The clients that I've been able to help get to get to status cancer free has been phenomenal. And it's just a great feeling for 26 years to have been able to do that.
So, are there those foods that you want to rip out of people's hands when you come across them?
you know, I wish I could say that my implementation of my strategies is absolutely perfect for everyone out there. But nothing drives me crazier than seeing the types of foods that are provided for people within the medical communities in the United States.
Hmm.
Um, if you're giving people processed foods and and caffeinated sodas and sugared beverages as part of their therapy within the hospital, then of course they're going to continue to use these things outside of the hospital and continue to when they leave the hospital or when they leave their therapies, naturally they're going to think that these are harmless ingredients, that they can have these in their lives, and nothing could be closer, um, nothing could be farther from the truth. On the other hand, if you run into situations like I run into now with my brands, where people come to me and clients come to me and they say, I've got this list of things that I can eat and list of things that I cannot eat.
Mm.
Can you assist in implementing a policy for that? Then that's where I land my energies, is assisting people that are like-minded, that want to be healthy, that want to live that lifestyle of cancer-free and want to get there in their journeys. That's where I leave. And of course, I'm not perfect either. I like a slice of pizza. I like to have a hot dog off the grill from time to time, like I did yesterday with my kids. And, you know, we're going to be around inflammatory foods. It's how we react afterwards, um, such as fasting, intermittent fasting, um, such as going to a broth diet after we've had something that's caused some inflammation in our bodies and that knowingly causes inflammation. Things like that, that we can work to from time to time eat these types of foods that you want to snatch them out of their hands, um, and at the same time be able to return to an anti-inflammatory lifestyle and be able to eat the types of foods that we are implementing into our lives to prevent this type of return of cancer and other rare diagnoses. I
Mm.
hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So, rare disease patients often feel like um, they are navigating health alone.
Yeah.
Health. See, when what we are. So, what were some of the gaps you experienced um, as a patient in that inspired the Real Medical Meals system?
Oh, 100%. This is a great question. Ben, you've got some wonderful questions. I wish
Uh,
other folks would ask questions like this. What inspired me really for the Real Medical Meals system was I started noticing that there is a miscommunication between when the doctors provide the diagnosis, the dietitians provide the lists of how the patient should be eating and the foods that should be plentiful in their diet and the foods that should not. And then the patient themselves going to the grocery store or the farmer's market or wherever they shop for food, and and implementing that into their lives. There was a fumble, so to speak, to use a football analogy here on Easter Sunday. When the ball got fumbled, it was up to people like myself to implement this Real Medical Meal strategy, where I have been able to come in and read the diagnosis that the client provides for me, read the nutritional data that's being provided in the and the dietetics data that's being provided by the dietitian, analyze what they're saying, and be able to implement a menu strategy for my clients. So oftentimes, it's just, hey, chef, listen, I would love to be able to have you in the house once a week, but let's do a Zoom consultation. And can you assist me in being able to figure out where I need to go with these ingredients? Can you provide me some recipes that are anti-inflammatory, that are, for cancer, for coming off of chemo and radiation, and really be able to implement this strategy on an individual basis. So I customize menus for them and email those menus over to them and those recipes over to them, and they're able to implement that strategy. There's others that are like caregivers and patients themselves that have contacted me and said, I need you to come to my home and prepare the meals. And so um, it's really individualized and customized policy. Real Medical Meals was created to actually be able to assist as many people as we possibly can that have these diagnoses that need our assistance. Oftentimes, there's so much information flooded all over the internet about what foods are healthy for individuals with diagnosis like cancer and others. Oftentimes it's good to have somebody who's got that lived resilience that I've already touched on, that that survivorship and has lived through this and knows what foods generically these individuals should be trying and assisting to implement within their individual
To
diets every
everyday
week.
meals,
And so I
such as
do that.
lunch.
And I think Real Medical
Oh, it's
Meals
a
has been
it's
a
really a
wonderful
challenge
outlet
because
for
that
that
man, you've got
so
some
far
great
here in
questions this Easter Sunday.
2026. And we'd love for
This
you to contact us
translating
if you're
medical
out there and you're looking
meals
for that.
into
We'd love for
real
you to
life
visit
food scenarios
realmedicalmeals.com
for
and
clients.
see what she's
It
talking
has its
about. We'd
challenges
love for you to
because
come on over and send me an email,
the
and let's see if we can assist you.
American
Whether we can
Western
Zoom
diet is
like I
not
like
the
to do if you're
healthiest
way
diet
across the
out
country or
there.
way across
In
the
fact, a
world,
lot of
or
ingredients that are found
if you're in the
commonly in our
Carolinas or in the
supermarkets and
southeastern
our
United States, or even
our
if you
grocery
really want, we
stores
can
and
travel to
in
you. I
our
can travel to you and come and
in our
help
food
show
supply
you
in
how
this
to implement
country
this
are
strategy within your own house.
pro-inflammatory as opposed
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
anti-inflammatory. So you
So,
have to really be
my
out there to
patients
do your
are
research
told
on
to
behalf
eat
of your
healthy, but
client as to whether or
they're
not an
really
ingredient could
they
harm somebody
they're
and
rarely
cause
given
inflammation to
the
one degree or another with their
practical guidance.
diagnosis, or not
Um,
cause and be anti-inflammatory.
um,
So
why is
it's up to me,
um,
really.
why
The
is translating
challenges that I
medical
have
nutrition
is
advice
when
info?
someone does not
Um,
communicate fully to me what their medical condition implies, what the doctors and dietitians are saying to them within their field of therapy that they're receiving. And sometimes, and this is quite oftentimes in the US when I've been dealing with American doctors, I have more nutritional training as a PhD candidate in naturopathic medicine, and also as in my culinary training over the years. I have more nutritional knowledge than some MDs do. So it's very difficult when I run into challenges when I have a physician that's kind of advising their patient about using inflammatory ingredients such as seed oils and other types of ingredients that you can find that actually do cause the gut irritations and inflammation within cancer patients' bodies. So that's been a significant challenge of mine, being able to bridge that gap between physician, dietitian, and patient, being that other piece of the healthcare chain. So it's not every client that I take on that this has been a circumstance with, but there have been a handful that have been challenging. And so that has been really a situation where the client has not communicated completely to me the foods that they're sensitive to, or some of the sensitivities otherwise not necessarily cancer related, that they might be sensitive to. Communication with the client on their health care is the most important part of my job as a medical meal specialist. Because when I come in as a medical meal chef to your home to cook a meal, and I have a tremendous amount of ingredients that are healthy for you, if you're sensitive to any of those ingredients, or you may have an auxiliary like a food allergy or something that you did not communicate, that is the biggest challenge as a medical meal specialist, is opening up to new clients and having these new clients begin to tell you about the ingredients that they are in fact sensitive to and that they may have some type of food allergy or sensitivity to. So that's a huge aspect of my career, and that's been a huge challenge of mine as a medical meal specialist and medical meal chef. And we've overcome that by encouraging communication between myself, the chef, and they, the patient, and also discerning the information that comes in from the dietitian and the doctors themselves. So sometimes a patient has also involved communication between myself, their chef, and their meal prepper, and their doctors and their dietitians. Oftentimes, I can be an intermediary and help explain some of this stuff. But it's been a lifelong, I mean, a lifelong and career long challenge that I've had over the years is oftentimes when people reach out to me as a private chef, it's a circumstance that they don't want to share a tremendous amount of auxiliary information. So what we've been able to do is combat that with our medical questionnaires. So we send questionnaires to all of our clients that are personalized questionnaires about what their needs are for hiring us and our team to meet or exceed the needs that they have for their meals and their nutrition. And once we have those questionnaires that are returned to us by the client, it serves as a bridge to help communicate information that maybe the client may have forgotten to inform us about. We always ask similar questions, send out two questionnaires. One is an intake form, the other is a questionnaire form, a basic questionnaire form. And in those forms, we're able to discern that information and create the menus and the specialty menus so that ball, using the analogy I used earlier, that does not get fumbled. I had to learn that the hard way. But that's been a challenge. It's been a challenge. And we have met that challenge.
So your work focuses heavily on anti-inflammatory and
Mhm.
gut support health meals.
Mhm.
Um, what uh, what are gut health and anti-inflammatory such? Let's see. Why are gut health and anti-inflammatory such important factors for people recovering from chronic illnesses or cancer?
Oh, well, and I mean, it's very, very important that you listen to your body when it comes to the food that you take in, especially uh, when you've been diagnosed with a chronic illness like cancer, and you need to figure out what foods you can and cannot tolerate. Oftentimes, just because an ingredient is labeled anti-inflammatory, or maybe you do an internet search, or maybe your dietitian or cancer therapy group says, hey, you need to be buying more ginger or turmeric or whatever, you may be sensitive to that ingredient. So it's very much a customized experience for you traveling forward. Now, more and more research over the 26 years that I've been involved in this business has shown that gut health is the center of all health within our bodies. So, getting to gut health and having good gut health oftentimes will be the difference and the bridge between whether or not you are re-diagnosed with cancer or not. Studies are starting to show that individuals who have taken good care of their gut post cancer treatment have begun to heal their gut with prebiotic and probiotic fibers and other types of therapies, such as ferments like yogurts and that type of thing. They've been able to um, not necessarily avoid a secondary diagnosis of cancer, but certainly it has not hindered their abilities to be able to live an anti-inflammatory lifestyle and stay cancer free. The last study that I saw showed that it was like 60% were able to avoid re-diagnosis, And then the 40% that wound up being with secondary diagnoses and other diagnoses of cancer, really just returned, as I talked about earlier, to their lifestyles before that and ignored gut health and ignored the information that maybe might not have been available to them at the time, and just returned to a normal lifestyle, eating inflammatory foods, avoiding the inflammation associated within their bodies, and thus a secondary diagnosis of a different type, if not the same type of cancer that they were originally diagnosed. So it's been a struggle, but it's something that I've definitely been able to implement in my life. And as we know, the gut microbiome is like our second brain. It controls the food that we take into our bodies, controls our cardiovascular, our circulatory systems, as well as our digestive system, which is, one of the most important systems to me because I had a third of my stomach removed, most of my small intestine was removed, and a good portion of my large intestine was removed, which meant that I had to do very early on research about what gut health is and how it can assist me in rebuilding my digestive tract. Things like kefires and ferments that I touched on, they were a huge part of my therapy, as were plant-based dietary fibers and seasonal eating, which I touched on early on in the podcast here. And so those are the different things that I would say uh, would definitely be and have benefited me for the last 26 years in implementing strategy with clients and with my companies as well. Yeah.
So, what are some of the biggest mistakes people make when they try to change their diet after diagnosis?
Well, I think that, people after diagnosis, when you beat cancer, it's a overwhelming feeling of joy that you have at first. I can't believe it. I did it. I'm cancer free. And you want to
Mhm.
celebrate and go, you want to shout from the biggest mountain you can get to, I beat cancer. And that's fantastic. And I'd say the challenge really lies in where do we go from here? How do we return to work? How do we return to regular life as we once knew it? And the truth is, and this is the hard truth that I've learned over 26 years, life will never be the same. Life will never be the same. Diet will never be the same. Lifestyle will never, ever, ever be the same. I've met cancer patients that become cancer survivors that have changed their careers, changed their whole lifestyles. And then they meet people that they knew before cancer and they look at them and they say, holy, you look completely different. And like people do not recognize me from before I had cancer. I've lost 30 pounds. I'm maintaining gut health. I've been the same waist size that I've been for the last 10 years. And people don't recognize me. I have to go up to them and say, "Hey, how you doing? It's Chuck Hayworth. Remember we went to high school together?" Or, "Hey, we went to college together. Remember?" Or, "We worked at Marriott together. We worked at, such and such company and such restaurant." Chuck, that's you? My goodness. You've changed completely. Like you look completely different. I had hair back then, but Anyways, um, it's the struggle really is, and I'm looking at folks listening to the show that are at the end of their cancer journey. Don't return, as I said it earlier, don't return back. Never turn back to what you were, and never give up. Never, ever give up. Keep climbing that mountain. If you're out there struggling, keep climbing the mountain. Keep seeing the little things that are the light at the end of the tunnel, and you will get there because the brain is the most important thing. Do not lose hope of winning and beating this disease. Psychology is a big part of it. Psychologically, in your mind, you need to keep that positive mindset. Okay, I'm going to take 10 steps today. I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to take 10 steps out of the bed today. You know, it can be something as simple as I've really struggled with trying to figure out what else I'm going to do with my life now that I'm a survivor. I need to change everything. In your mind, think, what have I always wanted to do? What have I always wanted to do, but never did before I had cancer? Make a list of the things you wanted to do. And you know what? Start checking that list off. That's what I did. I said, you know what? I want to have these conversations with the people that I love and tell them what I'm doing. I want to change my career and help as many people as I possibly can. So that checklist that I'm telling you about that I did the minute that I was made cancer free, that I was told I was cancer free, I'm still checking it off to this day, you know? So if you're out there and you're a survivor like me and you're feeling discouraged and you don't know what to do, the first thing you want to do is take one step forward in your life in what you in what your goals are. You beat cancer. Congratulations. Now it's time to move forward with life. And you know what? I really pray that on this Easter Sunday, that moving forward, if I'm talking to you and you're that person, that you do what I've done, which is to make a difference in as many people's lives as you possibly can for the better. Because you've just come through one of the worst traumas that you will ever have in your life, and you've overcome it. Now it's time to make a difference in what's left of the life you have. So for half a lifetime post cancer, that's what I've been doing. And in the little things. When I wrote the book because I wanted caregivers and patients to realize with my journey, The Chef's Recovery, which is an Amazon best-selling book that I wrote in 2014, I wanted them to realize they're not alone. In shortly before that, in 2012, I was on television on a TV show called Thankfully Local with Chef Chuck, which was on Armed Forces Network as well as MAV TV networks at the time. And I told people and introduced people to the farmers and to the people that were raising the food that helped me in my recovery. And after doing that, it was just a matter of people reaching out from all over the world and all over the country and telling me, thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the work. And that's where I am today.
So,
As I sip my kombucha on Easter Sunday here.
yeah, yeah.
Speaking of gut health.
So, rare disease and chronic illnesses don't just affect patients; they affect the entire families. How can caregivers and patients better align their nutrition during treatment or recovery?
Well, these are the best questions I've ever been asked in 26 years. I'm serious.
Thanks.
You are really you are really in depth covering. Today is Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
I am currently in the process of preparing Easter dinner over my shoulder here, in the kitchen, which is over my shoulder here. I'm in my mountain location for the resort chef with my family right now, and and this is a question I wish they could. I'm gonna share this podcast with them after we finish up, but it's a question that I would love for all of them to answer. Um, Folks, once you're cancer free, the biggest step in sharing your lifestyle, your new lifestyle with people, i.e., the anti-inflammatory ingredients, the healthy ingredients, the local ingredients, the ingredients that are helping you and helped you during your recovery, or maybe you're still in the middle of your journey. why not bring the whole family aboard? So what you need to do is on days like today, tell them, I'm cooking dinner and you guys are going to try the food that has helped me in my recovery from cancer. And you would be surprised at how embracive they are in eating healthier. Once they see that you have more energy, that you have not been re-diagnosed with cancer, or maybe that some of these ingredients assisted along with your traditional medical team in your recovery from cancer. Today on our Easter plates, we have sweet potatoes that are organically grown. We have pasture raised lamb that was grown right here in North Carolina. Um, we have a little bit of shrimp that my brother brought up from the coast of North Carolina, and it's kind of like that little shellfish treat that we love, but has the all these different things have these anti-inflammatory ingredients that we've cooked and that we've used, and we steadily implement that into their diets. They're not necessarily embracive at first of not using salt around the dinner table and kind of finishing their food with it instead, or little things, just little things, fresh herbs, fresh spices, and ingredients that you as the patient have used in the course of your recovery. They love you. Your loved ones and your family are the most important pillar in your recovery. So, why not get them eating a couple times a week the same ingredients that you're eating to keep your body healthy, to keep your gut healthy? It's easier to do than you think. Invite everybody over for a dinner party. It doesn't have to be Easter Sunday like today is in my house. It can be any day of the week that they have availability. And who knows what impact we could make in the lives of our loved ones and our family members if we just invite them to sit down and dine with us. And that's the other thing that I've really found about American eating. Families really need to get back to dining instead of eating as quickly as they possibly can and going off and doing whatever they do with their lives. Set aside time to spend with your loved ones, because no matter how healthy we are, no matter how healthy we eat, our time does come at some point where it's our turn to pass away and bridge over or go home to heaven or wherever you believe, and go be with the Almighty. In my case, I'm a very strong Christian, and Christian faith is very much centered around my life. So Easter Sunday is a very sacred day for me, but it's also sacred in that this is one of the few days of the year that I set aside with my career to spend with my family and let them know how special and how important they've been in my life and in my recovery and in my journey with cancer.
Mhm.
And we do that around the dinner table, which I think is of paramount importance, that we begin to dine again. After cancer, I've taught my clients, I tell my clients, learn to eat your food slower. Learn to dine instead of just eating. I hope that resonates. Learn to dine instead of just eating. Take longer to enjoy your food, to digest your food. Enjoy your time with your loved ones and your family members. Because as I said, even after cancer, I know that someday I'll be called, and that's the end of my journey, and hopefully by that point I would have helped as many people as I possibly can, because that's my goal. Having prayed and meditated and exercised my faith around my clients, they know, and my family especially knows, that this is the most important time for me, and the most important thing to me is that they realize that this is sacred time. And most of us that survive cancer, we know how precious time is, but you just can't waste it. And a day like today is definitely a day to kind of go get everybody together and say, it's so great to have everyone here. It's so great to have everyone in our lives that we can spend time with. And here, 26 years later, I hold this tradition to be true. Dine around the dinner table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important.
So, for families who are overwhelmed by a new diagnosis, where should they start when it comes to improving nutrition?
Well, you have resources that are available to you. The first and foremost, I would definitely recommend that if you have a healthcare team, communicate with your healthcare team. We are not getting the resources that we need, for example, for nutrition. Are there dietitians that are covered through the cancer center that you're visiting, for example? Are there dietitians that specialize in your type of cancer or specialize in your type of diagnosis? There are specialists that are a part of my day every day, either through Zoom calls or through phone calls. I'm constantly consulting specialists. So they do exist and they are willing to share their specialty with their clients and with their patients. It's just a matter of speaking up. So the biggest thing that I would tell people is if you feel like you don't have enough resources, speak up. And if you're not able to speak up, then you contact me through Real Medical Meals at no expense, and I will contact them for you. Because the most important part of something like a cancer diagnosis, or even this goes true with renal and kidney patients, autoimmune, insert whatever your condition is, communication with your healthcare team about your nutritional needs is of the utmost paramount. And if you're not getting that, if you don't have a dietitian that specializes in your condition, if you're not seeing a specialist other than an oncologist or a doctor that specializes in your specialty, and you've communicated continually that you're having trouble with nutrition, you need help with nutrition, and they're putting that in your doctor's notes and they're putting that in your and documenting that in the notes, and you're not getting the assistance you need, please contact me through realmedicalmeals.com, and I will definitely help try to cement that over so we can bridge that gap and see if there's anything in your area that we can assist with. um, it doesn't have to be that you want to hire me to be your chef. Not everybody can afford our services and our therapies, and that's okay. As I said before, I mean, my mission is to be here for many people as I possibly can. So oftentimes that means being a bridge between a healthcare practitioner and the patient themselves, actually being an advocate for them and communicating, you know, hey doc, listen, we've got a problem. We have a problem with nutrition here. We have not been given the guidance and the appropriate guidance for nutrition for this diagnosis. We need help. And once we speak up for them and speak up on their behalf, probably most of the time I've done it through FaceTime, on an iPhone, or even in a Zoom call when a doctor has office hours. That individual is able to have a more success with their nutrition. And oftentimes, once it's explained to me, hey, we did it this way, we're going to do it this way and that way. And this is, these are the nutrients and these are the things that we're trying to get, supplements, etc., for this individual. I'm able to come in and go, okay, we can supplement with food on this side and that side, and wherever we need to be that bridge. And then I also take down that doctor's information, and I have the full blessing of the patient to be able to say, hey, if we have any further miscommunication on the nutrition side, can we contact you? Certainly you can. Here's my number. Here's how to get in touch with me, whatever. And so I've been able to make that bridge as well. And kind of be that missing link in the chain there that has assisted quite a few of my clients. And quite a few people that were not my clients that I just kind of, for circumstance, have had come to me and say, I'm not getting the nutrition I need. I can't afford your services, but I really need help. That's the way I've been able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's been effective tools. It's been effective tools in their recovery and in their toolboxes. And it's been able to help quite a few people.
Yeah. You refer to your work as medical meal therapy. Can you explain what that means, and how it differs from traditional diet planning?
Sure. So traditional diet planning really involves
learning about what people need and what their mineral and dietary needs are, and then formulating menus around that. We take it a step further. We involve dietitians and physicians where they're available. We take their notes that they provide for our clients, and we realize that somewhere, sometimes, and oftentimes, there are ingredients that the client has had in their arsenal that are actually causing problems in their overall nutritional health. Or there are vice versa. They've really got a tremendous amount of ingredients that they're bringing in for themselves, that they're getting anti-inflammatory therapies. And as a medical meal specialist, what I've been able to do is discern the information that comes in from the dietitians, and in some cases, just generic paperwork from discharge from hospital. This is what you need to be eating, and formulate menus and actually cook those menus with my clients. And so they're able to really taste the difference between what they were eating before cancer, in the case of cancer diagnosis, and what they're eating after cancer diagnosis. Oftentimes, people are given meal plans, but they really don't know how to cook properly. They don't know how to do basic cooking in the kitchen. COVID solved a lot about people really in 2020 not having the ability to be able to cook on their own. But post 2020, I still have the individuals that say to me, before cancer diagnosis or before renal or before, before I was diagnosed with autoimmune, I was eating out a lot. So I was able to kind of discern information and still give them the opportunity to dine in restaurants that don't use inflammatory ingredients, but also be able to give them the guidance while you're at home during the week to be able to do adequate meal prep with ingredients that are healthier for their gut and healthier for their condition that they've been diagnosed with, based on the notes that have been given by and provided to them by their healthcare teams. So it's a bit more complicated than just meal prep and meal prep specialist. And it's definitely a bit more complicated than, say, generic meal box that comes to your doorstep, that is a medical meal box that is using ingredients that are okay for you given your diagnosis. We go a step further and we customize it for all of our clients. So every one of our clients, whether they're a consultation client or whether they're actually a client that I go and I cook in their house for them, they're actually able to get these ingredients implemented through strategies and that I use and plated for them or packaged for them for later use and reheat in their homes. So it's definitely a step further than traditional meal prep. And then having most traditional chefs that say, oh, yes, I'm a private chef and I use anti-inflammatory ingredients. That's fantastic. That's a fantastic start. But how do you customize for clients that have underlying conditions, such as cancer survivors or cancer patients, renal patients, other types of conditions? There's not a lot of chefs that specialize in that. And I've been doing it for 26 years, and it's been an effective form of therapy for every client that I take on, because it eliminates the frustration that a lot of caregivers have as well. So caregivers try to discern that information as well, and they're not able to customize. They're just following the guidelines given to them by doctors and by dietitians and by the healthcare team. We're able to bridge that gap, and our services are able to bridge that. So we take the meal prep process and take that a step further to customize that per the condition of the client. So it's been 26 years in the works. Started with cancer patients, now using really most conditions out there that folks are diagnosed with. I'm able to get a lot of ingredients and different things implemented into their strategy, including gut health, that assist in their recovery and their health and wellness overall, using the assistance, of course, of their healthcare team.
Mm-hmm. So how do you design meal protocols for people with complex medical conditions?
Well, it's just a matter of taking a look at what the recommendations are from the physicians and implementing strategy using that. Um, it's easier to do than you think, but it really takes somebody who's been around for a while and knows the thought process of the physicians, knows the thought process of the dietitians. A lot of what is diagnosed with for people to use, a lot of the ingredients that are recommended, even in books and in different publications that are on the internet, are actually more dangerous for certain people. So it's a matter of really communicating. And I touched earlier with communication with client. That's very, very important to communicate with the client about where their food sensitivity lies. And oftentimes, hospitals and healthcare systems will provide a list of dietary needs for somebody, and the condition requires certain types of foods that be implemented in strategies, but they don't take into account the individual patient's foods that they like, foods that they don't like, foods that cause inflammation, and other auxiliary foods and environmental factors in the patient's life that do cause major issues such as inflammation and others within their overall lifestyle. So we customize and we discuss every menu item with our clients, and we talk to them about what their doctors are saying and what their dietitians are saying in their paperwork. And communication, as I touched on earlier, between client, chef, doctor, and dietitian. And if you don't have a dietitian involved in your therapies, whether cancer therapies or others, maybe insurance doesn't cover it, maybe you just don't have those resources are available from nonprofit organizations. So a real simple Google search in your area can find you someone that is a dietitian, a registered dietitian that can assist you with your therapies. And they may even give you a list of meals to implement within your form of therapy. When they do that, I come to the rescue and I say, okay, but remember, Peter, you told me you can't have any type of beef, or you can't eat. You told me you couldn't have chicken or poultry or anything like that implemented into your diet or whatever. So we make sure that we customize these based on the orders of the healthcare team, but also at the same time taking into account the client and what they like to eat. Because what good is having a list of items that you can eat and a list of items that are therapeutic for you if you don't like any of those? If your individual taste buds don't like these ingredients, what's the point? So it's great to have somebody like me that's a chef that had to kind of hide fruits and vegetables and all kinds of stuff into food ingredients, into food items that are regular food items that my clients like to eat over the years. In fact, I'm in the process of writing another book that's basically about hidden fruits and vegetables into everyday, ordinary food staples that Americans like to eat. And it's remarkable to me, and has been remarkable to me over the years, the results that we've had just listening to clients, what they like to eat and what they don't like to eat, and how I kind of surprise them by hiding these items into the dishes that we create, by telling them, don't worry, you won't taste any of this. For example, when you get that picky eater that really didn't eat a lot of fruits and vegetables before they were diagnosed with something like a rare cancer, you go, hey, don't worry about that. We got you. And then they say, this is delicious. And we go, thank you. Did you know there's about 7 different types of vegetables that you said you didn't like in there? No, I didn't. Well, guess what? It's hidden in there and you like the dish. So guess what? We're going to do that one again.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of working with the individual client, what they like, what they don't, and then finding a strategy that if they're not allergic to an ingredient, I'm going to hide it one way or another if it's something that is beneficial and that their healthcare team says is beneficial for their diets. and beneficial for their recovery, most importantly. I'm going to hide it in there. They're not going to necessarily be able to taste it. I'm going to find a creative way. So getting a chef involved like me and getting involved with my therapies, I'm going to find creative ways to implement seasonal ingredients into your diet as the patient that maybe you never tasted before, or maybe you never liked before, that you come out of your therapies and out of your medical meal therapies going, my goodness, that was so tasty. And I go, well, yeah, but did you know there are about 5 or 6 vegetables and fruits that you never ate and you never liked in there? You never had any kind of allergens or sensitivity to these ingredients, but we implemented them into your strategy and you actually love that sauce, or you love that, that particular dish that we prepared with that. And it's remarkable to me. It's all about humanity and connecting and making that connection, and implementing that strategy. And that's the difference. That's the real difference between working with someone like me and working with a generic piece of paper or a page that's given to you by a dietitian, a doctor. We help implement that strategy into delicious meals that you can have on a weekly basis, and know that you're taking in the calories and the foods and getting the minerals that you need to optimize your health and stay with the guidance of your doctors, with the guidance of your healthcare team, and stay away from the previous lifestyle that you once lived, that led to diagnosis of cancers and things like that. So, something I've been up to for 26 years, and I love what I do.
The book idea sounds like it would be a winner for parents.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All
In
kinds of
fact,
picky
I
eaters.
I started I started writing it because of the fact that I really saw a lot of that in the early stages of my career. That people would embrace the menus that I would create, and then it would turn around and they would try to feed that and implement, like we talked earlier about family and eating with family. They would try to implement this strategy to kind of introduce their families to the foods that I was creating to keep them from, being re-diagnosed with all kinds of different conditions. And their family would return to uh, unhealthy lifestyles and unhealthy Western diet and Western food. And I would feel like I've dropped the ball somewhere because, 6, 9, 12 years down the road, I would look at a client contacting me and I would say, why does this last name sound so familiar? And they, oh, well, you took care of my mother, or you took care of my cousin, or you took care of my uncle or my aunt. And I go, weren't you in the dinners that we created? So it's like, okay, well, guess what? We're going to use some of the same therapies that worked for your aunt and your uncle, or your grandfather or grandmother or whatever. We're going to use those in your therapy too, so that we can get you well. But that we could have done this years ago with you, kind of scold them. So those are the folks that I'm dedicating that new book to. The folks that I know, that struggle with once I'm hands off with implementing this kind of strategy into their families' meals. And we look forward to releasing that book later this year or into next year, early next year. I'm not going to rush it. I'm really putting the finishing touches on it, and cooking some more dishes and really kind of making sure that it meets and aligns with everything that I want it to. So, it's been a dream. It's been a dream come true. Yeah. Yeah.
So, are there certain foods or dietary patterns that consistently support healing and recovery?
Very much like I touched on earlier, very much customized and individualized. Just because an ingredient worked for me for my therapy doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be an excellent form of therapy for you.
Mm-hmm.
For example, fermentations and yogurts and other type of lactic fermentations have been very beneficial for me to rebuild my gut microbiome, but they're not necessarily something that I would recommend implementing with a client that has severe histamine issues. So when I had a client that had severe histamine issues, the first time, this individual was sharing with me that everything needed to be fresh and everything had to do, and they couldn't have ferments and they couldn't have the different things that I loved in my therapies. So it provided me a challenge. Not that I hadn't dealt with it before, just that it was a challenge of like reminding myself that every therapy for every client is different and individualized and customized. So that's what that's the one answer that I would give. Um there is no golden ingredient that you can hold up and say this is the perfect ingredient from mother nature that she created to keep us all from having disease. That is not or cancer diagnosis in this case. That just doesn't exist. So I would very much folks that if someone in your life is telling you that there are ingredients that you have to have, make sure that you are getting this information from people that are professionals that really know what they have the professional designations that allow them to be able to advise you on that kind of thing. But there's no real like ingredient for every client that I use, or for every client, there's this anti-inflammatory that protocol that I recommend, or there's this type of ingredients that need to be used with fasting. We certainly implement a lot of broths and a lot of different strategies using the liquid diet that I touch on in my book, but I don't use that with every client. That's certain types of clients that require that type of protocol. So every protocol is different, every protocol is customized. And there's a tremendous amount of research that you can do on your condition. And there's a lot of misleading information. So make sure you ask the questions that you need to ask about the ingredients that you want to implement in your therapy with your specialists, such as dietitians and your physician, most importantly. They have the medical training, they have the knowledge. And although I have the lived, resilience, like I say, just because one ingredient worked for me doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to implement it in your medical meal therapy, unless, of course, you've been advised to do so by your healthcare team. So that's the most important part about what I do ingredient wise. I use ingredients that are recommended by my client's healthcare team, and formulate menus around the types of ingredients that are functionality and functional with my clients. And so, yeah, no real ingredient that I use, no real natural source of anything that I use with every client. Everything is customized, everything is individualized, and everybody's bodies are different. Our blood types are different, our bodies are different, our bodies react to environmental factors differently. And so that's certainly taken into account with medical meal therapy as well, especially with medical meal therapy. And so that's to answer that question. It's a bit of an elongated answer, but yeah.
So someone listening right now is managing a chronic illness or rare condition. What are the what are three simple changes they could start making today to support their health through food?
Well, first and foremost, know what foods cause reactions in your body in the form of inflammation in others. And maybe might be a good idea to start eliminating those. Um, the next strategy is really find someone, a doctor or someone that you feel uh, aligns with your values and where you want to go with your health, and seek their advice on what to do if you're feeling overwhelmed or if you're feeling like you're not you're not in the best of health. And third, and the easiest thing to do, is just start some type of exercise protocol in your life if you're not doing that. It can be something as simple as, if you have a four-legged friend, take your dog for a walk. and then increase the distance that you're taking your animal for a walk. Something that simple. You don't have to do a tremendous amount of running and cardiovascular and implementing protein strategies into your body or anything like that. Try just some form of meditation and fitness in your life if you're not doing that. And that can help assist you in your overall wellness journey. Last but certainly not least is to introduce new foods that you have never tried to your diet. Try new foods and new types of food. There's plenty of recipes on the internet that can teach you how to use new ingredients and how to use different types of foods. Lord knows I would love for you to turn to mine, but there's plenty of recipes that can teach you how to use things. And if you want to take it a step further, I recommend find local ingredients where you live that you could implement into your strategy of health and wellness and staying well, or in the case of diagnosis, helping you begin to heal. Maybe you're being recommended to have more cruciferous vegetables, things like that. See if you can find that locally grown where you are. And then invite your friends and family over to try some of these ingredients themselves. Make a difference through food. So those are really three food and nutrition and wellness strategies that I recommend for folks if they're really looking for inexpensive ways to implement some type of health and wellness journey into their lives without any type of diagnosis, any type of nutritional strategy being implemented professionally. Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to patients who feel overwhelmed trying to implement nutritional changes during treatment?
Yeah, I would definitely say to those individuals that are seeking nutritional advice during treatment, and if you feel overwhelmed, uh, seek out assistance from various organizations that exist in your community, but also step back when you need to step back away. Um, Oftentimes, I find caregivers are family members or spouses of different cancer patients, and sometimes all the information can be overwhelming. And if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of that person that you're the caregiver for. So what you need to do is you need to be able to step back and breathe for a minute, meditate for a minute on the information that you find. And then if you're really still having problems like implementing any kind of nutritional strategy, or maybe you don't have access to a dietitian or um, physicians or therapy groups or things like that can assist you, I recommend that you just contact me very briefly through realmedicalmeals.com and let me help see if I can help with my tremendous amount of resources over the years that I've been able to find, to see if I can assist you in finding something for your loved one, or for someone that you're caring for that you may be overwhelmed with. Remember, if you're not taking care of yourself, there's no way that you can help take care of a patient or take care of a loved one that's going through something as serious as cancer. In my case, my spouse, Eileen, who's in the other room, she's been through so much with me in 26 years. The struggle is real. And sometimes, in addition to speaking with me, oftentimes caregivers want to talk to her and want to talk to my family members about what they've been through. My mother, my father also went through my cancer journey with me. My children have been through my cancer journey, all adults now. They've been through my cancer journey with me. And what's important for us, all of us, my kids, my wife, my mother and father, um, my I had two brothers that went through the journey with me that are my siblings growing up. Every one of them, cancer has touched them in one degree or another through my journey, and they're able to each add additional advice on for caregivers. So when caregivers contact me, oftentimes I'm also going to say, "Would you like to speak with Eileen? Would you like to speak my wife, or would you like to speak to Debbie, my mom, or Joe, my father, or Mike, my brother, or speak with one of my children about what this has been like for them." And it lets that individual who's the caregiver kind of let their guard down and know that they're not alone in this journey, that there are others that have been there, that are at the end of the tunnel, that they're only beginning to see the light of. And you'd be surprised how many people that has helped over the years, that once they meet Eileen or they read about Eileen and they talk to her or send her a text or an email or whatever, and they realize that they're not alone in this journey, that it is so incredibly helpful. Remember, most of this is psychological, not only for the patient, but also for the caregiver. Sometimes it's as simple as Eileen will send, or myself will send over a few recipes to a caregiver and say, here's some food that you can help implement. It really comes to fruition when a caregiver says, I'm feeding the entire family, plus I'm having to do food for for the patient, oftentimes a spouse or a family member. And it comes to fruition when Eileen or myself are able to kind of send over a recipe and say, here's a few recipes for you to follow. Thank God I don't have to surf the web. I don't have to go out and go on the internet and see if this is safe for them or not. You guys are you guys are such angels for providing all this information for us. And it's like, you're quite welcome. It's our pleasure. It's the least we can do is to send a caregiver a recipe or two that could help them in their journey with their patient. It's our responsibility. And by the way, that goes for those of you that are listening that are survivors. If there's anything that you can do to help within our cancer community, it's a very large community of individuals. If you see that someone's out there suffering and that you have expertise that can help them, reach out and help them. Oh, well, don't worry about culture or anything like that. Reach out and let them know that they're not alone and that you can assist with your expertise. That goes for you that are healthcare. Some of you are healthcare nonprofit healthcare providers. Some of you might be dietitians or dietetic students. Everybody can make a difference in this journey that is cancer by using our expertise to assist people in need that are just getting started, or people that are just getting to the end of their journey and are starting their wellness journey. Let's not let a caregiver hang out dry that has the inability to be able to do this all by themselves. Let's let them know they're not alone, and let's use our expertise to assist them. That's just my advice and what I've done for the last 26 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to continue doing that for the rest of my life, despite being cancer free, and my family members, despite knowing that we are at the end of our journey. If we can assist, and we have, by the way, um, each of my dear great uncles has passed one degree or another of some form or another of cancer. And in our little hometown of High Point, North Carolina, we have dedicated the Charles Hayworth Senior Cancer Center on behalf of them and on behalf of their foundations. Um, and we continue to give back to the cancer community that way in my hometown of High Point, North Carolina, where I grew up. That's where my physicians are based. And my dietitians are based there that help me in my journey. And there's some fantastic resources there through an organization called Cancer GPS. You can look up their website, Global Points of Strength, Cancer GPS. They're a fantastic resource. And Dr. Bernard Chinnasamy, my former oncologist, and he assists millions of people around the globe with their cancer journey
by letting, and caregivers especially, by letting them know that they're not alone in this journey that is cancer. And you can look up his website too, which is cancergps.org. And they're a fantastic organization for resources as well if you're out there struggling. So, and the cancer center in High Point is the Hayworth Cancer Center, and they are there for resources for cancer patients, whether or not you're a patient or not. There's a library there that has a tremendous amount of resources for you as a cancer patient, specific to cancer, that are there on our behalf that we're constantly updating, and the staff there is constantly updating. And we hope that that caregivers feel like they're not alone, and that's part of one of the purposes that building was dedicated. Uh, just so happened that it was dedicated after my 10-year cancer-free journey, 10-year cancer anniversary. Was a great day. I had my oldest son in a stroller, and we really promised the world that that's where we're really going to do some great stuff to assist those who have been diagnosed in our little community that we have. And people have come from all over the country to go there and visit. So I invite folks that are caregivers to please, visit those organizations. They're there for you.
So you're currently a PhD candidate in natural medicine.
Yeah.
What areas of research are you most interested in exploring?
Well, I've already started the exploration of gut health, and I'm reading every day more and more information about gut health, more and more information about the studies, particularly studies going on at our own here in North Carolina, Duke and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, who have been huge in gut health and big time funders of the research that's transpiring in gut health, which is fantastic. As a PhD candidate, this has really been my next step, my next journey with my life. When I become Dr. Chef Chuck Hayworth, it's going to be PhD. It's going to mean a heck of a lot more than just being Chef Chuck and being Chef Chuck's survivor. It's been a tremendous point getting here. And obviously, natural medicine has always been a passion of mine anyway, using ingredients from nature in dishes to assist cancer patients and other types of patients. But it's also a passion of mine to really learn as much as possible. As you may imagine, it was the Wild Wild West 26 years ago. We didn't know what we know about gut health. We didn't know what we know about the digestive system and its importance in overall health. We didn't know about different strategies and implementations that could take place with nutrition and dietitians and this type of stuff 26 years ago that we do now. We also didn't know, and we really struggled with what foods cause inflammation and what foods don't within our society. So in my PhD studies, what my plan is to really continue gut health exploration and its importance, particularly when it comes to cancer, and also implementing that strategy by studying naturopathic nutrition. That's the next big step, is getting the PhD in nutrition, where we take it a step further and we start studying very specific ingredients that can help combat and do in fact combat inflammation, and how to implement that strategy and the strategy that I've developed with Real Medical Meals into medical naturopathic medical practices. And that's really the next big step, is as a PhD and as somebody that can call themselves a naturopathic doctor, how can we work to prevent cancer diagnosis? How can we work to prevent rare disease of all types and rare diagnosis in young people of all types in particular? So those are some of the theses that I'm working on. And I hope to have my first PhD, at least all of the official work finished by the end of this year on my first PhD in natural medicine. My next PhD, my secondary PhD, of course, will be in nutrition, and an emphasis will be on
cancer recovery and cancer prevention. And so I'm really, really excited about those steps and implementing those steps in the next few years into all of the brands that I've created from the get go, where it all started in 2000. Um, when it all started, I could never have dreamed that I have come this far with all the knowledge that I have about food and our food supply and anti-inflammatory foods. But what's even greater is being able, Joanna, to take this information and discern this information now and take it into the next level of my career as a PhD, as somebody with a doctorate that can be taken seriously on all of this, not just a chef, but a
Yeah.
doctor as well. And so those credentials are going to help me really be able to go in the next strategy and the next step of my life, which is, as you can tell, helping as many people as possible through a practice that will be not only nutritionally sound, but also and dietitian foundation, but also physician, dietitian, and implementing these strategies in the lives of our clients. And I'm really looking forward to that. That's the next big calling that I've had in my life, is to help as many people possible with this naturopathic medicine, and implementing that into their lives and into their strategy, in their recovery strategy and or prevention strategy as well.
So, where do you hope the future of nutrition and patient centered care is heading?
Well, I really believe in that. Again, another home run question from you. I love your questions today. They're really
Yeah.
they're keeping me on my toes, but I've truly always wanted to answer these. I
Yeah.
think the future of medicine is going to be revolving around the old phrase that people that I knew used to use in these parts of the Appalachian Mountains, where I'm currently broadcasting from, is that you are what you eat. You are what you eat. You are what you eat. I can't tell you how many times as a kid I heard that. You are what you eat there, Chucky. You are what you eat there, Charles.
Yeah.
It's so true. We are what we eat. What we take into our bodies can have a long lasting effect on our overall diagnosis and our overall health. Well, guess what? That's the future of medicine. I believe wholeheartedly, no matter where you lean politically, that nutrition is going to be front and center in the news. Nutrition and dietetics is going to be part of our lives, part of our lifestyle, part of the way we live, the way we implement health strategy and wellness strategy in our lives, whether or not we've been diagnosed with something like cancer that has had a direct effect in that, or whether we're just trying to stay healthy throughout the year. It's going to be part of healthcare. And it's going to be a very, very exciting time to be a part of that community moving forward into the 2030s and beyond in our country and in our world. And I really believe that if the policies are implemented correctly, that they're gonna cross cultural lines and maybe, just maybe, bring healing to humanity that we've needed for a very long time, not only in the United States, but in all cultures around the globe. If we can lead the way through nutrition and through human connection, through food and through anti-inflammatory foods, we're going to lead the way in every way possible in the healthcare chain. It's the missing chain in this equation right now between doctor, patient, and dietitian, implementing food into that equation. What we take into our bodies, what we take for granted that we have to have, is nourishment to one degree or another to live our lives.
Mhm.
So implementing strategies that keep us all healthy and keep us well through food, I'm so excited to be a part of that. And I really believe that's going to be part of our lives into, from now where we are in 2026 on Easter Sunday, all the way out until Easter Sunday of 2030. Maybe I'll come back on Easter Sunday 2030 on your podcast and we'll be having the same dialogue. Are we where we were in 2026, now here in 2020, 2030 and beyond. I believe by 10 years from now, food will be a part of humanity's wellness more than ever. So it's going to be an exciting time to be a part of that. And that really starts, with this journey now that I'm going through. And I cannot wait to be a part of that. It's just so exciting. It's an exciting part of who we are as humanity. And if we can take nutrition to the next level in healthcare, where it should be a dialogue, which I've spent, over 2 decades of my life trying to make nutrition a part of the healthcare dialogue, a part of being in the doctor's office and talking to the physicians about strategy and nutrition strategy, and keeping patients well once they've been diagnosed with things like cancer. I think it's going to be an amazing journey. It's going to be an amazing journey into the 2030s. I really do. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So, Rare Connection exists to help people feel less alone in their journey. One of many reasons. What message would you want to share with someone who has just received a life-changing diagnosis?
Just know that another zinger. Gosh, you're hitting home runs today. Just know, person that's just been diagnosed with any insert condition, you're not alone. There are people who love you, who care about you, who you may not have even thought of in a while. Let them know about your diagnosis. Share your healthcare journey. Share as much information as you feel comfortable with these people. If you need a caregiver, choose a caregiver. And let them be a part of your strategy. Let them be a part of your alignment with where you want to go and where you want to get to. Set small goals. Implement your goals and your strategies as you go through your journey. It's not the end, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of something that is going to change your life forever. In my case, I talk about looking down at a scar every morning. When I wake up in the morning, I look down at my scar from my surgery, from having that tumor that was literally the size of a large grapefruit removed from my stomach. Every day I look down at that scar and think about how you can make a difference. In your case, being diagnosed recently or just being diagnosed, you're at the beginning of a journey, and you can choose to kind of give in to that journey psychologically and give in and forgive and forget and just go along with it. And maybe you pass away, maybe you don't. Maybe you believe in a higher power, maybe you don't. But in my case, I became closer, my faith became stronger, and I actually began to take the little steps in my life where cancer diagnosis changed me forever. That was 26 years ago. So I know that whatever you've been diagnosed with, whatever it is, maybe it's cancer, maybe it's something else, that there are people that care about you and love you, that are going to be there for you through your journey. Open up to them. You are not alone. And that's my advice. You are not alone. And know that you are not alone. You are not out in the wilderness all alone. There are people there that would lie down in traffic for you if you ask them to. So let's get it done. Let's create a caregiver group. It's going to be there for you for your whole journey. And then move forward. Little steps at a time become a mile. And that's what you need to know. These little steps that you're going to take in the first start of your journey, they become miles and miles and miles. Listen, I was a 22-year-old chef training to be a Michelin-starred chef. My whole life changed. I could care less about awards and accolades, Michelin stars, fine dining. Could care less. The only thing I survived for, and the only reason that I'm sitting here talking to you today, Joanna, is the fact that I took those baby steps, set those goals, created a caregiving team, and made it through to the end of my story to be able to tell this story today on Easter Sunday. And my faith was a huge part of that. But if you don't have faith and you're out there, hey, you know what? Just know that there's a higher reason for you being diagnosed with this. And you will use your mind to know the people who care for you and love you. They want to be there through your journey. Open up to them and let them be a part of it. And create your caregiving group and then start taking some steps, baby steps. Create a mile. And that's what I would tell somebody that's been diagnosed recently is let's do it. We'll do it together. And if you really truly feel alone, reach out, realmedicalmeals.com. There's an email that'll come straight to my inbox. Let's chat. Let's talk. I'll help you. I'll help you implement some strategy that's going to help you. You're not alone. There's plenty of people out there that can help. There's plenty of organizations out there that'll help you in your journey of being diagnosed with whatever you've been diagnosed with. But if you really feel alone and you're listening to my voice today and you really want somebody that's going to be compassionate, it's going to care, it's going to help, reach out, realmedicalmeals.com. I'm Chef Chuck, and I'll help you. And I'll email you. I'll email back and forth. We'll get a chain going. We'll figure out how we can implement something that can help you. Because I hate to watch people that suffer and they feel like they're all alone, or maybe you feel so embarrassed by a diagnosis of whatever you've been diagnosed with, that you're a private person and you don't like sharing your emotions and sharing your feelings, or maybe you got a goofy family that you don't want to share this information with them, or you can't think of anybody that you'd want to be a caregiver for you. Just reach out. Let's try to do some outlining and figure out how we can implement some strategy. You can implement some strategy in your life, having been diagnosed with whatever you've been diagnosed with. Let's help you out. Let's see if we can help. And know that you're at the beginning of a journey that psychologically, if you keep telling yourself that you can beat whatever you've been diagnosed with, you will, because the mind is a very powerful tool when you've been diagnosed with something like cancer. And you can beat this. Use this, your mind, and you'll beat it, and you'll be where I am, where you're wanting to make a huge difference in other people's lives, and that's where that comes in.
Chuck, thank you so much for coming on and on Reconnection and sharing your not only your story but the work that you've done to help
I
patients
love it.
turn medical advice into something they can
Yeah, yeah,
actually live with every day.
absolutely. And indeed, a pleasure talking with you, Joanna. Thank you
Yeah,
so much, and
sure.
thank you for having me. Happy Easter to you and all your viewers, and let's make a difference now. Let's make a difference. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Is letting people know that they are not alone in a cancer diagnosis, and there are people like me and Joanna and others that are out there for you.
So if this episode resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to my to Rare Connection wherever you get your podcasts. Both let's see to my YouTube channel and my YouTube channel Rare Chef, where these conversations begin as video. If you're watching on YouTube, I'd like to hear from you. You can leave a comment, just drop a comment below. What did you take away from the conversation? Let me know in the comments below. If you're listening to the audio version, you can use the send me a text link in the show notes to share your thoughts on to share your thoughts or connect. You can also follow our connection on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn to stay up to date on upcoming episodes. And as always, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a supplement for medical advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare professional before before implementing anything. If you or someone you know is struggling, you are not alone. In the U.S., you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Support is available. Watch out for my next episode on Friedreich's ataxia on April 22nd. They have a new drug that is, I'll be talking about that. Thank you for being part of this community and reminding each other that even in rare conditions, connection matters. Thanks.